tell you it's a tough world out there. So in addition to the everyday pitfalls and obstacles in the business world, why would anyone want to add to the stressors of life by jumping out of a plane, driving 200 miles an hour in an Indy car, or climbing an insanely high mountain? Well, this man, Jim Clash, would, and he highly recommends it in his new book, To the Limits. We were curious, so I sat down with Jim to find out what these extreme adventures are all about.
The great writer Ernest Hemingway once said, there are only 3 sports in the world, mountain climbing, bullfighting, and auto racing. The rest are just children's games. and what Hemingway was trying to say, I think, was when there's some risk involved, real risk, that makes the outcome less certain, and it also gives you a much bigger charge when you pull it off. I just recently did my first skydive. Joe Kittinger, he jumped out of a balloon at 103,000 feet above the Earth back in 1960 as research for NASA's space program, and he broke the sound barrier coming down. He hit 714 miles an hour. Anyway, I was interviewing him. He said, "Well, Jim, why don't you do your first jump? I have a friend over here at DeLand who can do a tandem jump with you." So, and of course, what could I say?
A lot of the endeavors include adventurers from the business world.
That's right.
What is the attraction to extreme sports and this particular group of people?
I think there are 2 attractions, really. One, I think a lot of baby boomers now are frustrated. Their management positions, pushing papers around. They can't really feel like they've done anything. They're in a bureaucratic company. And so if they go out and climb a mountain, when you climb a mountain, there's no faking it. The mountain doesn't care, if you're rich or poor. The mountain doesn't care if you're black, white. It doesn't care what religion you are. It doesn't care. When you're at the bottom, everybody's the same. The other thing is, business people by nature, a lot of them are entrepreneurial. And entrepreneurs are constantly looking at risk versus return.
Is the risk sometimes much higher than the return?
There are adventures where the risk is higher, but I would never do an adventure where I thought the risk was higher than the return. In other words, the return for me, sometimes, for example, driving a race car 200 miles an hour is very dangerous. Indy cars are the fastest cars in the world, and to maintain that speed all the way around a track is very difficult, and also to get someone to let you do it. You're going a football field a second. You got to concentrate, but for me, it's something I really wanted to do ever since I was a kid. So the return is a big deal to me, and it's worth the risk.
And why the heck would you want to swim at the North Pole?
Well, I have to tell you, I felt guilty, because here we were, a bunch of tourists, the average price on this trip was 25 grand, taking an icebreaker all the way up to the North Pole. So we get there, and I felt guilty, like, Perry and those guys lost their limbs, blah, 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 lost their lives trying to get to the North Pole. So I had to do something different. I was in the water for all of maybe 30 seconds, but I have to tell you, by the time I came out, I really was on the verge of passing out. And of course, the Russians give you a shot of vodka and a chocolate, and you eat it and drink it and whatever. So that's what that was all about, really.
That's crazy.
So Edmund Hillary, boy, I have to say, that guy is a class act. I asked him, what do you remember, back in 1953 when you were on top of Everest? And he said, I was looking out toward the other great peak, Makalu, and I'm working out a route about how that mountain can be climbed, because it had never been climbed. And he said, for me, that shows that even though I'm standing on top of the world, it wasn't the end of it for me. I'm already thinking about my next adventure. And that's how adventurers think. What
would you like the reader to take with them as they read the book?
I think people should realize that they can push the limits. And there are ways to do it that are relatively safe. But then again, if it's all the way safe, there's no adventure. So, and also the metaphor for business, that if you're careful about your risk-taking and you're passionate and you work hard and all that stuff and you enjoy what you're doing for a living, you'll be successful. So I think To the Limits is just that, to the limits, taking yourself to the limits.
And Jim Clash's new book, To the Limits, is available in bookstores everywhere. It's a great read.